it's good to go down the road with you again. Lots has happened since the last time we visited. I don't know how much attention you pay to it, but I sure do. We have 2 new United States senators in Georgia, and they're Democrats. In Georgia. Can I mention that again? They're Democrats. That'll get everybody's attention, I would think. What caused it? We'll talk about it a little bit later. Also joining us today, Governor Doug Burgum. He gave his address to the joint session of the legislature. Let's talk to him about it and find out what his take was on it. But I had a chance to visit with President Ken Gormley. And President Gormley he's from Duquesne University in Pennsylvania, and he's a constitutional scholar and someone that knows quite a bit, more than me and maybe more than you, about what our Constitution says and what can and can't be done. President Gormley, good to have you coming down the road with us.
It's wonderful to join you here, Joel.
You know, one of the things that got our attention and the reason that we reached out to you is because of an op-ed that you wrote. And the premise of the op-ed was if President Trump pardons himself, then Joe Biden should unpardon him. Walk me through that.
Well, I wrote that for the Washington Post, Joel. I've done a lot of work on, the history of the presidency and also the pardon power specifically. And so because there has been so much talk of President Trump really pushing the pardon to the outer limits and perhaps pardoning his children, but even pardoning himself, I really felt it was important to address that. I believe strongly that there is no power in the Constitution for a president to pardon himself. It's the complete opposite of what the pardon power was designed to accomplish, which was to grant mercy, to grant a pardon to someone else, not to yourself, and also often to allow the government to move on past crises like the Civil War when Lincoln and Andrew Johnson gave pardons to Confederate sympathizers, or in Watergate when President Ford famously pardoned Richard Nixon to let the country move on from Watergate. There is no basis in the Constitution, in my view, for a president to pardon himself. It runs counter to the whole idea that the president or no one else can be the judge of their own case. So my view is that if he were to take that step, it is dangerous in terms of future precedent for future presidencies, and that what the Biden administration should do is first refer it to their Office of Legal Counsel, because in 1974, the Office of Legal Counsel under President Nixon issued an opinion that a self-pardon was invalid. So this would be another reaffirmation of that principle. And then it's my view that President Biden should take an affirmative step and nullify the pardon to, either tee it up for the Supreme Court if President Trump were prosecuted in any way and it became relevant for a federal crime, which I think is unlikely, quite honestly, but even more importantly, for future precedent, so that it does not just stand there alone without a strong statement saying this is not what the executive branch stands for, because it would have terrible, terrible consequences down the road for presidencies in the future for either party. It would just be a bad thing for our country.
So really what you're saying is there's no provision in the Constitution that allows a president to go potentially, and I'm not necessarily talking about the current president, to go from robbing the state treasury, or the United States Treasury, I should say, to go from using insider trading, to go from committing whatever crime he potentially could, even as far as murder for that debate,
Correct.
And then pardon himself.
Precisely. You could give away the greatest trade secrets to a foreign adversary for $1 billion and walk out the door and pardon yourself and your presidency, and there'd be no federal consequences. That can't possibly be correct. We have to make clear that future presidents do not have the power to do that.
You said tee it up for the Supreme Court. So let me ask this. Do you think that President-elect, then to be President Biden, has the constitutional authority to unpardon him?
Well, it's a great point. And Professor Larry Tribe, who I have great respect for at Harvard, and I've worked with on some things, actually has opined that the unpardon that I'm talking about is not technically constitutional either. Well, I acknowledge that. The whole point is there is nothing in the Constitution that allows a self-pardon. And so what you need to do, the president has a role here, Joel, in setting markers for the future, because some of this is just designed in history. I did this book on the presidents and the Constitution. There's a chapter in every, it's by NYU Press, it's coming out in paperback, but there's a chapter on every president. And one thing you learn about presidential history is most of the history of the presidencies are developed at the moment by events of history. And so my point is, it's extremely important to say this is not okay. As the head of the executive branch, it's not okay. Whether that is binding, it's no more binding than the self-pardon in the first place. But politically, it is setting it is establishing a statement as a matter of precedent. The example I give is the closest parallel is that in Andrew Jackson's time, you may remember, he was censured by the U.S. Senate because he removed all of the deposits from the federal bank. He was opposed to the federal bank. And so he was censured by the Whigs, the opposing party. And he and his fellow members of the Democratic Party said, wait, you can't censure a president. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you could do it. 2 years later, the Democrats took control of the Senate and they swiftly expunged his censure. And the other side said, wait, you can't do that. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you can expunge a censure. Well, guess what? At least it's there now. It kind of froze it in time. So it never got to the Supreme Court, but all of these 100+ years later, it is very clear that we don't necessarily acknowledge that censuring a president is even permissible, that there is a dispute on it. So the gloss of history, Joel, is part of the precedent. And that's why I think it's important, whether it's a legally binding statement or just a precedential statement, because it may be 100 years from now before that is really tested. But this president and his administration should go on record saying that is not acceptable. I would never do it. Future presidents, as I try to protect this office for future generations, should not do that.
I'm getting hit a lot on my radio show, the question of why would he pardon himself, and is there a need to pardon yourself if you're not charged with a crime? You mentioned, President Ford and what he did with then President Richard Nixon, or I shouldn't say then president, but, former President Richard Nixon. You had a chance to visit with President Ford. Talk to me about that.
Well, I met President Ford a number of times. I was working on my biography of Archibald Cox, the Watergate special prosecutor, and I was interested in knowing Ford's view of the pardon because Cox thought it was a bad idea, as half of the country did at the time. And he pulled out his wallet, Joel, and pulled out a little scrap of paper, and there was a piece of paper of a case, Burdick versus United States. And I teach constitutional law. I had never known about it. It was from 1915. And it said, a pardon is an imputation of guilt. Acceptance of a pardon is an admission of guilt. And he told me this whole story of how he sent a young lawyer, Benton Becker, to Richard Nixon to explain if he accepted the pardon, it was a legal admission of guilt. And in fact, Nixon's lawyer, Jack Miller, later acknowledged at a program at Duquesne for the first time ever that not only was that true, Nixon tried to fight and not take the pardon at first because he didn't want to admit guilt. So it is very important to understand that if President Trump gave himself a pardon, which I believe is unlawful in the first place, it would also legally be an admission of guilt. I don't know how you think you ever run for office again, or what that does to your legacy if you acknowledge guilt. So to go back to your original point, President Ford pardoned Nixon for unspecified crimes during the entire period of his presidency. And you're allowed to do that. That's absolutely permissible. You don't have to identify the specific crime. However, when you accept that pardon, it is an admission legally of guilt.
I'm surprised that President Ford didn't use that more, because I believe I'm older than you, and I was a young boy in grade school with politically active mother and grandmother and older siblings, and they thought it was almost illegal. They just were repulsed by the fact that he had been pardoned. Of course, that has to do with my side of the aisle. I get that. But I think that President Ford paid the ultimate price for that. And so I'm surprised he didn't use what he told you.
I've done whole programs on this, and I've interviewed President Ford multiple times. Here's the thing. At the time, first of all, we didn't have 24-hour news like we do today. That news got buried because if you remember, his press secretary, Gerald Terhorst, resigned in protest, and that took over the news. But also, here's the point, and he never said this to me, but I figured it out talking to his aides. They were unsure what Nixon would do. He was a volatile personality. And so they were walking on eggshells. They did not want to make a big deal out of that thing at that time for fear that he would do something totally, kind of unpredictable. And they just wanted to move on and govern the country. Yeah. And incidentally, I think that it's very clear that Joe Biden and Gerald Ford are very similar in the positions they find themselves. And similar in characteristic, very steady, old-fashioned, straight-shooting, Midwest Gerald Ford, son of a patent varnish salesman from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and adopted son. But I think that President Biden wants to just move on and get stuff accomplished, which is what he should do. At the same time, we have to keep one eye on the future of the American presidency, our democracy and government, and take appropriate steps.
President Ken Gormley is with Duquesne University out of Pennsylvania. Stick around. We're going to get a chance to even hear more about this expert on the U.S. Constitution as we keep going down the road.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather, like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to Down the Road. President Ken Gormley is with us. He's with Duquesne University, and he is a constitutional scholar. President Gormley, first off, I don't want to miss this opportunity because I'm going to get calls after today's show, where people are going to say, okay, who is that? How do I show people your published work again so they get an opportunity to read it, to buy it, to see it?
Well, this is The Presidents and the Constitution, A Living History. It's put out by NYU Press, and it's coming out now in paperback in 2 halves. The first half is out, and we're adding a Trump chapter with a historian from Texas. Okay. So that will come out in the spring at some time. But there's a chapter on every president. I envisioned this 15 years ago teaching, because there's no such book like this where you see in every president its mixture of history and what their presidential powers, how they evolved. And you see exactly that the way presidential powers come to being isn't from the 1,000 words in Article 2 of the Constitution that just covers the most basics. It's the events of history, and that's why you have to take these moments when they occur and take a stand on them, because you may be shaping the history of the presidency for all future generations. And that's the point here. It's not exactly it's not whether this is going to be the decisive factor in Supreme Court precedent or not. You owe it to that institution of the presidency to safeguard it and to make sure it's protected for future occupants.
Okay, this is my risk. This is my risk at obviously proving that I'm not as informed as you when it comes to the history of the presidency and what has happened in relation to the Constitution. But I'm going to make a run at it, then you go ahead and tell me if I'm wrong. You will tell me if I'm wrong. Abraham Lincoln runs for President of the United States as a Republican. He picks a Democrat as his running mate, and Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson takes over, obviously, after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, and he gets impeached. Why? Why? What happened there? You got 2 different people from 2 different parties. I'm curious what your take is on the history of that.
Geez, I could spend forever on that. I actually did. My opening chapter in the book on Archibald Cox is the impeachment of Andrew Johnson, because his great-grandfather was a guy named William M. Evarts who represented Andrew Johnson in the impeachment trial. So I know too much about this. Let me just say that, don't forget that the Democratic Party at that time would be, they were names that interchanged. So the Republicans would be the modern-day Democrats. Yeah. The Democrats would be the modern-day Republicans. People get that mixed up at all the time. It was just a name change.
President Gormley, here's, as a Democrat in a very red state, say that in your small-town VFW bar, because I've said that. I've said that the party of Abraham Lincoln is truly the party that I'm a member of, the Democratic Party. If you look at their policies, if you look at their positions, and all I know is you better start looking around for friends.
Well, I'm telling you, historically, the names actually changed. There were Democrat Republicans. If you go back in history, there were all these different name changes, and there were the party of the Republican Party. You had the radical Republicans and the other Republicans, but they were the party of abolitionists, and they were not the forerunners of the modern Republican Party. But that's just a historical fact. But anyway, the reality is that Andrew Johnson, this proves why you would not today pick a vice president of the opposing party. Because no matter what your good intentions in being elected, that person could represent views antithetical to the very views you have been elected for. Andrew Johnson stood for preserving the Confederacy, which they fought the Civil War over. He was a compromise candidate that Lincoln put in at the time. But when he took over as president, he was trying to undo the very policies that Lincoln had died for. And so that's why he was impeached, not successfully, but almost successfully. And he ended up really going out in disgrace because he had tried to undermine the efforts to rebuild the country and Reconstruction in the vision that Lincoln had set out, and failed to do that.
I want to bring it back to today, to President Trump, because I don't think in my lifetime, hopefully in my lifetime, we're going to have a president that is as non-traditional as what Donald Trump is. And I realize many of the people that watch us here as we go down the road don't agree with me politically. That being said, Donald Trump has broke barriers. And so my first question of you in relation to President Trump is this. Do we have co-equal branches of government now? Because it seems that Mitch McConnell and the Republican Party in the Senate, and it just seems to me that they cower, that they're afraid of this man, and that they give him complete control. And so, is that a danger for the future?
It is, but it's cyclical. Again, if you look at history, in the early part of the country, the Congress was by far the strongest branch of government. And you just saw that repeatedly. In fact, John Quincy Adams goes after being president to, being in Congress because it was not a bad position. It was, an important position. I think that the Trump presidency has shaken that up, but I think it will settle back down to where it was, quite honestly. I think with the new, actors in there. The biggest thing that the Trump presidency did was to kind of normalize this disrespectful behavior toward everyone. I mean, his own allies, his own people. That's something the opposite of what we teach our students at Duquesne University, to be leaders in anything, whatever. And your folks who are good heart, I was mayor of my little town here, Joel, and I have the greatest respect because I think our country works because of the average working family who really makes everything work. It's not these people in Washington, but we should always protect our civility and treating others with respect, even when we disagree. President Trump's breaking that norm has not been a positive thing for the country. I think we're going to see people getting back together, as we've seen in Georgia and other states where there was a push to cast everything to the wind. And that will be a good start to get back into normalcy.
I've got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, so I have to ask you this. We go around as Americans using ourselves as an example to other countries of what a democracy is. I mean, we are so proud of our government, and we are so proud of how it's worked. I'm starting to question that. Today there was a big rally that went directly at the Electoral College, went directly at the norms of our society and governance. And so are we truly the best democracy in the world? And do we ever endanger that at times like this?
Well, I think we still are the best democracy in the world. And these things have happened over history. It happened with the Hayes-Tilden election. They had to bring in the National Guard to Washington in 1876, 77 when that happened. But look at it, Joel. We withstood it, didn't we? I mean, we had elected officials of both parties. This is the thing to celebrate. In all of these states, a lot of them traditionally Republican states, who said, you know what? We did this fair and square, and we are sticking by, playing by the rules. Our people are good people. That is what won this in the end. And so we do have the strength still. I continue to be an optimist about our country. I do think we're the greatest country in the world, but it is calling people out when they push it too far, as has been happening, and making sure that we treat each other with respect.
I have 1 minute left. You're a historian when it comes to this, so let me ask you. I see Donald Trump as incredibly powerful post-presidency. Has there ever been a president that was as strong or could be as strong as what Donald Trump is?
I think it remains to be seen how strong he will be. I disagree with your premise. Everyone thinks they're going to be a powerful figure. Someone told me when I was working on one of my books that the history gallops in its direction. It's going to gallop, and you can't control where history is going to take you. Woe to the person who thinks they can. Donald Trump, who knows what he will face when he gets out of office, but there will be new people taking over and as leaders in the Republican Party, younger people with fresh ideas. I believe that it is unlikely he will be this dominant figure that he at least believes. And it happens all the time in politics, as you know. Things will change, things will move on, and Donald Trump will be another chapter in this book, and we will move on to the next president.
I could do this all day long. I could. I've enjoyed the heck out of it, and we're going to call you again someday, but I hope you're right. And I won't make you go down that road, because the truth of the matter is you wouldn't. You'd be smart enough not to, but I sure hope you're right.
I think you're doing a great job with your show. That's why I wanted to do it. I grew up in a steel mill town here in Pittsburgh, very basic roots. I have great respect for folks. My dad grew up on a farm in Kentucky. The people of North Dakota are just represent the essence of what America is about. And I think you keep fighting that and just keep protecting your own values and your institutions, because that is what makes this country great.
Ken, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So nice to be on your show.
You bet. When we come back, let's have our Newsmaker segment. A lot of things going on out there. Let's visit right after this as we go down the road.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck, or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Governor Doug Burgum's going to join us in just a bit. He addressed a joint session of the legislature yesterday, laying out a plan of, look, this is my priorities, this is where we should go. And you know what? I read through some of it, I saw some of it, I listened to the sound of some of it, and one of the things that just jumped out at me was his passion for what our healthcare workers have gone through. And I just thought it was one of the classiest moments that a governor can have, to thank those workers. We'll talk to him about it in just a little bit, but we like to do newsmakers. We do. We like to take a look at what happened and how it affects us today and into the future. So let me give you a couple examples. The United States Senate is really in the balance. Really, right now, we know that there are 50 Republican United States senators. We know that. We know that there are 48 Democratic United States senators. And so there's a race that happened in Georgia for those two other seats. So it's either going to be 52, 51, 49, 48, right? I mean, it's going to be 50-50. That's another possibility, and one we're going to talk a little bit about right now. So what happened in Georgia? Keep this in mind. In Georgia, which is the deep south, you all know where Georgia is. That is a red state. It always has been a red state. So what's happened in the last couple of months? It's been on the front page. It's been on every broadcast, both radio, TV. It's been on every blog you see. You know what I'm getting at. The President of the United States disputes that he lost Georgia, and he disputes the fact that Joe Biden won. He said it was rigged. It was stolen. In fact, there's people in Washington, D.C. today that you're going to hear about that are there saying it was stolen. They're going there under the banner of Stop the Steal. Well, let's go back and look at Georgia. You know, the Secretary of State in Georgia said it was a good election. It was a fair election. We did it as we have to do it. He did that. Now, he's a Republican, right? The president's a Republican. And the president called him and chewed him out and threatened him. And yet he still didn't give in. So the election results of last night, I believe, are the real election results. Now, we've got David Perdue running against Democrat Jon Ossoff. We've got Republican Kelly Loeffler running against Democrat Raphael Warnock, and he is a minister, so I should say Reverend. So what do we know today? Well, here's what we know today, that Reverend Warnock won. We know that. Kelly Loeffler, the sitting United States Senator, had been appointed to that position. She lost. She absolutely lost. So the winner has been declared, and the Reverend is going to be a United States Senator. So now where's that take us? It takes us to 50-49. So it's either going to be 51 or it's going to be 50-50. Well, what do we know? We know that Democrat Jon Ossoff is in the lead. We know that the places yet to be counted are places that are Democrat. We know that Jon Ossoff won, and we know that David Perdue lost. That's what we know. And we know that the United States Senate is going to be 50-50. It's going to be 50-50. So what happens? What happens if it's 50-50? We just got done talking about the Constitution. Well, this one's pretty simple, and you already know the answer, which is the vice president breaks all ties. So if there's a vote and it's 50-50, and your vice president is Kamala Harris, who's a Democrat, Joe Biden's vice president, you know what? The Democrats have control of the United States Senate. They have control of the U.S. House. That's why this was so big. That's why this is so big. If you disagree with Joe Biden's policy initiatives, if you disagree with those, you had a bad day. Because Joe Biden's agenda is going to get pushed forward now. It's going to be pushed forward. He's got the votes to do it. Now, there's individuals in the United States Senate that call themselves Democrat or Republican that really are middle of the road and could be called independent. I know Joe Manchin. I have met Joe Manchin many, many times, and I tell you what, he's an independent. He's a United States Senator from the great state of West Virginia. And West Virginia is about as red as you can get. And he has voted against what the Democrats have stood for or said many, many times. But he's a Democrat, which means that the Democrats will head the committees, which means that the Democrats will be in the majority. So people like that are going to be in a lot of power. I mean, they're going to be in a lot of power. And there are other Democrats very similar to Joe Manchin. I would go to Jon Tester, our very own Jon Tester. Many of the people watching us right here as we go down the road together are awful close to Montana. Jon Tester is the United States Senator from Montana. He's a Democrat, and he's independent-minded. He isn't married to the Democratic Party. So while we, meaning me and others like me, as Democrats are high-fiving and celebrating, you know, we also need to realize that it isn't just a rubber stamp, right? So let me give you an example of where I think it's going to change a lot. If you make $400,000 or more, last night in Georgia, your taxes went up. If you make $400,000 or less, last night in Georgia, your taxes went down. That's one of the big things about Joe Biden. That's what he wants to do. So know that. Absolutely know that. Now, today, there was a rally, Stop the Steal. So they brought in buses. A lot of that money came from the guy, the MyPillow guy, which turned his life around. He's very successful. Spent some time in the can. I get all of that. But he's got some money, and he believes in Donald Trump. Donald Trump's made him out to be a hero and helped him sell a lot of pillows, I might add. So he put some money into buses. He put some money into people to go out to rally for Stop the Steal. I believe it's an attempted coup. I believe that Joe Biden won the election, and I believe they have a right to protest and try it. I do. It's up to Congress. It's up to the Vice President of the United States to reject that argument. You can grab any banner you want. You can march through the streets of Washington, D.C. It doesn't make you right. It doesn't. And so if what they're saying happens, it's a coup. It's a coup. If the Stop the Steal advocates win, it's a coup. It's a coup. In the previous segment, we talked about democracy, where our country is in relation to democracy, whether or not we are that guiding light, that standard bearer when it comes to democracy. Well, it's about to get tested, right? The vote that is happening and happened today put Joe Biden in as president, and they did the right thing. I also want to compliment our delegation in North Dakota, because I know how much pressure was on them. I know the close relationship Kevin Cramer has with President Trump, and I want to say this. The leader, and one of the people that have really stepped forward to be the leader and the go-to person for what they believe in the state of North Dakota has become Congressman Kelly Armstrong. It has been. He's not afraid. He gets out ahead, says it, lives with the consequences of it. I'm really impressed with him. Really impressed. He's made some great choices that his party might not have liked. He's made some great choices that, left-wing Democrats might not have liked. In other words, he's governing. When we come back, the governor of the great state of North Dakota, Doug Burgum, right after this.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Boston breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a cum roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering, it's the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to Down the Road. You know, it's called juggling. There's a lot of balls in the air. And so when and if we get Governor Burgum on, we'll bring him in right away. Let me say this, that if you look at any news from today, you're going to see that there were those same Stop the Steal protesters out in front of the North Dakota Capitol. Saw some of it by photo, by video, and have to tell you, it didn't look like a great big crowd, but some people came out to protest. It's going to be interesting to follow along with what is happening, you know, out in Washington, D.C., where all the organization went to. The governor of the great state of North Dakota, Doug Burgum, spoke to a joint session of the legislature. I had a chance to listen to that. I had a chance to look at some of the points that the governor made, and we asked him to come down the road with us, and he was willing to do that. Governor Burgum, good to have you coming down the road.
Great to be with you, Joel.
You know, let's begin this way. I heard the passion in your voice, and you can't fake that. You can't. I heard you talk about those healthcare providers and thanking those healthcare providers. I want to say this. I just thought it was so classy, so deserved, and needed to be said, Governor.
Well, thank you, Joel. And I think we all know, in a state our size, we all know someone. We got either friends or family members or relatives or people that have served relatives of ours, and we know how incredibly dedicated those healthcare workers are, from long-term care to our clinics to our hospitals. And really, I extend that out to our EMTs. I think, you know, my brother who passed away in 2010 was one of the folks that helped start the ambulance service in Castleton. And before he passed, he'd gone on over 1,000 ambulance runs. And, you know, these volunteers like that, you know, I think there's close to 1,000 volunteer ambulance drivers like that across the state that are really putting themselves at risk this past year. And so, I mean, you know, these are neighbors, they're friends, they're family, and they deserve our gratitude.
You know, as tired as what they are, they appreciate it. I know, because I too have family members that are involved in all that. And so when they hear it, it matters. So again, thank you, Governor. I want to talk a little bit about what was thrust upon your desk in relation to the vaccine. You know, the federal government doing what they did, Operation Warp Speed. I think the science community doing an absolutely fabulous job of developing this vaccine. And now it's placed on your lap in your Department of Health. Are we doing a good job of getting that vaccine out in a timely fashion and to the people that need it?
Well, here in North Dakota, we are. And again, credit to our healthcare system and the Department of Health and local public health. But as of yesterday, we had administered over 25,000 vaccine shots. That put us as number 3 in the country in the terms of the highest percentage of vaccine received versus administered. And you know, given the logistics we have of distance in our state, given the logistics on some of these vaccines, the Pfizer one having to keep it at you know, 7 degrees centigrade, you know, the super cold chain, if you will, all the logistics to do that, you know, they're doing a great job. But we can do an even better job, because the faster we get the vaccine into the arms of people, the more we're going to, you know, save lives and protect our hospital capacity. So those are 2 really key things.
The word is out that a lot of governors want more. They wish it would be coming faster. They wish they had more help in administering it. Their hospitals are getting slammed, Arizona being a perfect example of that. New Jersey having problems recently, everything going back to New York. It wasn't that long ago that North Dakota led the nation, and you had to put in a mandatory mask mandate and take a look at lowering capacity and telling some businesses they had to be closed up sooner than what they had to be. Is the federal government getting the vaccine out as quickly as what they should? Because there's more than 1 or 2 stories out there of where the vaccine didn't get out in time so that it could be administered according to the plan. There's one pharmacist, for example, that said, look, I just started saying anybody that wants a shot, come get a shot. And so is the federal government working with you in a timely fashion and as quick as what they should?
Well, I think the answer is yes. I mean, this is an interesting time for America because it's probably go back to World War II when we've actually had to think about a concept of rationing. We live in such a society of abundance. If people want something, they can get it now. And so in these early days of the vaccine distribution, as manufacturing ramps up, having less vaccine than allocated to us as a state, then we would be able to administer. That creates some challenges, but we're seeing now in January, looking ahead into January and February, the amount of vaccine that's going to be coming our way is going to dramatically increase. And again, we want to make sure that none of that sits on the shelf. It will move through these priority levels, and if a healthcare worker doesn't want it, we're going to move and make sure that that's available for someone who's elderly and vulnerable and does, because there is a demand exceeds supply right now on the vaccine, and our key job is getting it administered as quickly as possible.
So I'm going to give you a scenario, Governor, and then you can go ahead and react to it. I have two friends that they're about your age. In fact, one of them went to college with you at NDSU. And these two individuals, one of which has serious pre-existing conditions, and they've been held up. I mean, they've been taking this as serious as you possibly can. No grandkids, no Christmas the way they would hold Christmas, living their life by Zoom, not really leaving their house in terms of having people bring groceries, that type of thing. They want to know where they rank. They want to know when they can be vaccinated. And they want to know how they get to the point that, all right, I know where to go, when to go, how to do this. What's your answer to them, Governor Burgum?
Well, those are exactly the kind of people that we were thinking about, your friends and colleagues, when we were setting our priorities. The federal government did give states the ability to take the CDC recommendations and modify them. And last week we announced our recommendations for what we call Priority 1B. 1A was frontline healthcare workers and those people living in congregate long-term care situations. 1B, at the top of 1B, is people that are elderly or have underlying conditions. And so that's really the next group that we want to make sure that we address, because those are the folks that are having the most serious illness. They're the ones that are the most risk of having a fatal outcome from this cruel disease. And the best way to find out where to go is either contact your healthcare provider, local public health, or at the North Dakota Department of Health website. I believe there's actually a link called Vaccine Finder that will help direct people on where they can go to get their vaccines.
Okay, Vaccine Finder. I think that's great to know. Also, call your doctor. That's another thing you just said that got my attention. The upcoming legislative session, you did get a chance to address a joint session. It's no big secret. It played all over the media, the fact that you would have liked to have seen some changes in the legislature, that there's some roadblocks that stopped what you wanted to do, your initiatives, one of those being the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, and yet he finds himself back in as chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. Where do you go from here? How do you make sure that the legislature takes a serious look at your agenda and gives you the ability to do what you want as governor?
Well, I think it's an interesting thing about a crisis like the pandemic, where we've had to work so closely with legislative leaders in both parties since it began. And I would have to say that our relationship and connection with legislative leaders today is stronger than it ever has been. And you saw that throughout last year with the Emergency Commission, which was made up of leadership and the appropriations chairs, helping to, a lot of collaboration, a lot of agreement on how to get the funds out to the people during the coronavirus relief funds, the federal funds. So I think the relationship's stronger than it ever has been. There's a lot of alignment, I think, around the vision, which is we've got to, with the economic crisis we're having, particularly in the collapse in the energy sector in North Dakota, we've got to be smart and conservative about our spending. We've got to hold the line on spending. We've got to make sure we keep our reserves filled up. Our budget would leave at the end of 2023 almost $1 billion in reserve funds, whether it's for K-12 or budget stabilization or the SIF fund. And yet there's one thing I think that's been fun to see a lot of different proposals coming on is the idea of doing bonding for the first time, really from the new tool we have, called Legacy Fund Earnings. So we don't have to raise taxes one dime. We don't have to use tax dollars to pay back bonds. We can take a small portion of Legacy Fund Earnings, take advantage of these historically low interest rates right now. I mean, 10-year bonds close to 1%, 20-year bonds 1.5%. We could create a permanent $700 million infrastructure fund that would be a gift to all future generations. And so there is kind of a historic timing right now where the Federal Reserve is forcing interest rates very low to stimulate the economy. And we're, unlike other states, we've got Legacy Fund Earnings. We got an opportunity to take those two things plus the Bank of North Dakota and really put together some interesting infrastructure lending programs that will last forever.
Governor Burgum, you're a busy man. You are, and yet you took some time for us. I do get to say one partisan thing, which is my side of the aisle has been in favor of bonding for quite some time, and it's going to infrastructure, so good for you. I think that's a great priority. Governor Burgum, thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks, Joel, and if we had a video connection drop off, not sure what happened, but I can see you. You're looking great. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to being with you again.
Thank you. Appreciate that. When we come back, some closing thoughts as we continue down the road.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Coulter Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best-built, best-backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
There is no place in America that understands the power of one vote or two votes more than the state of Georgia right now. No place. We're talking about millions of votes being cast, and yet elections being won by 1,000 votes here and there. You know what? That proves the power of that one vote. That proves why all of you individuals that have the right to vote need to get off your duff when it's time to vote, because it matters. Now, many of you that are watching this, I may not agree with how you vote. I don't care. I think elections are better served when everybody that's eligible to vote votes, period. We're going to see this in the North Dakota legislature. They're going to have to vote. They're going to have to. That's the great thing about the North Dakota legislature versus the national Congress, which is every bill that's put up gets a vote. I always liked that in my 14 years in the North Dakota State Senate. I always thought that was the ultimate check and balance. With Mitch McConnell now being the minority leader instead of the majority leader, I think you're going to see more of that. It's always good going down the road with you. Good riding with you, folks.